Hi guys, it's Bernie again. I just want to talk to you about the virtue or the main principle behind step 10. It's discipline and a little bit of perseverance as well. Again, I'm not going to explain how to do the step. The point I'm getting over is the virtue of that particular step, and the rest of the steps that we've talked about, or I've talked about rather, is the virtue, the meaning behind the steps, and they were originally brought about by our co-founders, Bill and Bob, just to give you a little bit more perspective and a little bit more idea of the sequence of these steps in order. Discipline, certainly perseverance, but the main core is discipline, and step 10 is definitely a discipline. It's a daily kind of step, um, and it gets us to look at the rest of the steps, really. How are we working them, and it reminds us really of the rest of the steps. So it's important that you do this step on a daily basis. It's a walking around step, some people call it, or some people at night time take an inventory of what's happened during the day. I like to just walk around for 2 or 3 hours, stop, have a little coffee or a tea, and just reflect on what's happened, really. Um, how I've dealt with situations that used to baffle me, but am I speaking to people in the right manner? Do I owe an apology straight away? It gets me to have a look at my behaviour, how the way I think and act. So this is a very, very important step. And the idea of this particular step is, is not to get disturbed during the course of the day, because remember, if we don't deal with situations that baffle us or hurt our feelings or other people's feelings, then they can really bring us back to resentments, and we certainly don't want those. And we have to think about us, but we certainly have to think about other people too, how we've reacted to situations. And it kind of gives you an idea of where you are on a spiritual level as well. Am I grown spiritually? And if I'm wrong, I promptly admit it. I go up to somebody and say, look, I got this wrong. You were right. Um, and it's quite an easy thing. Who'd ever believe it's you would love to say, well, look, I'm wrong. And sometimes we're not always wrong. Remember that. Sometimes, the other person is wrong, but, we try to just let it go. And sometimes we just pray for that person, hope they get it right. Uh, but the main thing about this particular virtue is to discipline yourself, to go through the rest of the steps, to keep working this particular step on a daily basis. And we have to discipline ourselves. That's life, really. A little bit of perseverance is to keep pushing, keep working. It's not easy, but it becomes a working part of the mind after a while. So the quicker we can deal with situations, and the faster, the less it's going to cause us. And it causes that pain on the inside for some of us. And who doesn't get hurt by other people? Our 12 and 12 tells us watch out for those emotional booby traps, and we get caught most of the time. But I think the main thing about this particular discipline is that if we can just pause when agitated, or some people call it the three P's, your sponsor will tell you what that means. But certainly, sometimes at the end of the night or the evening, I try and write down the things that went wrong, and those that went right actually as well. And I try and figure out, could I have done better? Could I have handled that situation in a much calmer way? And sometimes I say, well, I did a good job on that as well. So it's not all bad, but certainly I have to watch out for my behaviour, and how I'm dealing with things on a day-to-day basis. So the idea of step 9 was to clear up the wreckage. Now in step 10 we're clearing up the wreckage of the day, and that's so much easier than if I can get through the day without sort of getting in trouble, then I don't have to make amends. So it's very, very important that you clear up the wreckage of the day, so that when you can get to bed at night, you've got a bit of a clearer head to do your meditation or prayer. So it's about keeping that channel open and keeping it clear. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. So discipline, perseverance. Remember those words. I'll speak to you about step 11 shortly, and the virtue behind that principle is spirituality, or awareness, spiritual awareness. So look forward to talking to you about that particular step, which is my favorite step. Okay guys, have a nice day.